today we're breaking down a mock draft from Evan Silva starting off here, Caleb Williams, first overall pick. We know that's going to happen on Thursday. This is the pick that will determine the rest of the NFL draft. Obviously, the Commanders, what they are going to do at number 2. So I will share some information. Obviously, I have a deep background in LSU content creation, so I will tell you what I've heard from Jayden's camp and from other NFL insiders I've known over the season. I still believe the Commanders are going to pick Jayden Daniels. I just have gone back and forth between if this is actually going to happen or not. I can tell you, though, there is something to be said about both sides not necessarily being on fire about one another. But to me, Jayden Daniels is the best quarterback in this NFL draft, and I would take him number 1 overall if I were the Chicago Bears. I'm not backing off that opinion, and I understand LSU fanboys going to say this about Jayden Daniels. I got an even hotter take coming up about an LSU player here in just a second. But for me, I'm taking Jayden Daniels over Drake Maye. Is this actually going to happen? Well, there's been so much to be said about the Top Golf trip where all the quarterbacks were together for Washington, and also Washington's extensive history of not having the best relationship with its players going back to the Snyder regime. Obviously, this is a new regime headed by Adam Peters, the general manager. So, I don't believe Maye is the pick here. I think it will still be Jayden Daniels, but I can tell you there is something to be said about both sides not necessarily being all in on one another. And I will say this. There are people in Washington, and I used to be based in D.C., worked at SiriusXM. There are people in Washington that have J.J. McCarthy as the guy here. And I'm not just saying this fans. I'm talking about people that actually have a say-so. So this is one of the more interesting picks, and this has always been the case. The number 2 overall quarterback has always been the more fascinating pick than the number 1 overall guy. I do believe Jayden Daniels is not going to fall past pick number 3. It's either going to be the Patriots or, like we've mentioned in our last mock draft, it could be the Minnesota Vikings here. It could be the Las Vegas Raiders. The Patriots are asking for too much. Per my sources, they want a ton of first-round picks or just an unfreaking believable draft pick package. And even if I am a huge Jayden Daniels fan, and I think it would work unbelievably well in Minnesota, and I think Jayden would love to go to Minnesota and play with another LSU legend in Justin Jefferson, even though they were never teammates. I think the Patriots will end up picking Jayden Daniels. Now, if Jayden is taken number 2 overall, and then you get to number 3, I don't believe the Patriots are as high on Drake Maye as they are Jayden Daniels. So I am leaning this potentially being J.J. McCarthy if Drake Maye were to fall to number 3. But still, if I were to bet money on it, and the NFL betting market is really, really hot during the NFL draft period, I believe Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels will be 2 and 3 in some order. But I could see J.J. McCarthy jumping both of them. And one thing I will share from one NFL source who I've known for a good portion of my broadcasting career, he has told me from the get-go, do not be shocked if J.J. McCarthy is the 2nd overall quarterback taken. And this was before the McCarthy hype really started to pick up back in January. So you could go check my tweets and you could see that for yourself. But so far, if Maye is pick number 2, it's a lock that the Patriots take Jayden Daniels unless the Vikings do actually pay up. And I think that price would have to be 4 first-round picks or something along those lines. Now, I'm going to go out here and start disagreeing with Evan Silva. Okay, so Evan knows way more about football than I ever will. Okay, he has Marvin Harrison at pick number 4. I believe this will be Malik Neighbors. I just believe it. I think when you actually watch the film and look at the data, it's pretty close between Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and the next receiver up here, Rome Odunze. I am going to go Malik Neighbors here at pick number 4, and this will be my long shot play for the NFL draft. I understand that is a very hot take. This is what I would do if I were the Cardinals. Malik Neighbors is the best player in this NFL draft. I'll take it. I'll take the heat for being called unfreaking believably biased towards LSU players. But I will also tell you that even though I am higher than consensus on Jayden Daniels, and obviously way higher on consensus than Malik Neighbors, I can also tell you Brian Thomas Jr. is someone that I am not necessarily on fire about when it comes to being a top 10 pick, and some people are believing BTJ could be a top 10, top 12 pick. I'm going to go Malik Neighbors here at pick number 4 instead of Marvin Harrison. So we then get to pick number 5, and this is obviously the biggest disagreement I have with Evan Silva. I don't think the NFL the NFL teams are going to pick Rome Odunze over Malik Neighbors. And I just don't believe it. I don't believe Rome Odunze is on the same level as Malik Neighbors. I still believe Rome is a top 15 level player. I think the top 3 receivers in this draft are so far away from all the other receivers. And one of my hotter draft takes is I would not select a wide receiver in the first round unless it is Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, or Marvin Harrison Jr. All the other receivers I'm fading to a certain extent. I think since there's so many receivers and they're all kind of to me at a similar talent level, I would go for more offensive linemen. But we'll talk about that as we move along in this draft. Malik Neighbors is pick number 6 here. This would be the steal, right? If the Giants were still able to get Malik Neighbors and there be 2 wide receivers selected in front of them before they actually get to Malik, that is pretty freaking incredible if you're the Giants. So this would be the best pick of the NFL draft. I think the Giants and Malik have been heavily linked to one another. Yes, this is not the best quarterback situation, but immediately Malik Neighbors becomes the best offensive player and maybe just the best player on the team outside of course, Dexter Lawrence, who is an absolute monster. Titans get Joe Alt at pick number 7. That's a very, very good pick. They definitely do need to build up the trenches. So I like that pick for the Titans. Pick number 8. We get to Dallas Turner here. For me, obviously, Dallas Turner, if any of you do actually follow college football, Dallas Turner is one of the most hellacious defenders in SEC history, right? He absolutely destroyed LSU all 3 seasons. He is a very, very good pick. I think he is a first-round draft grade. He is not my best pass rusher in this NFL draft. We'll talk about him coming up, but I still think this would be a fine pick for the Falcons. It's just not the direction that I would go. Now, I actually agree with this, and this is actually my number 2 player in the NFL draft. Byron Murphy. Obviously played for one of the best defensive line coaches in the country in Bo Davis. Just an absolute amazing athlete who could take on double teams and can get after the quarterback. This is a top 5 player in the NFL draft for me. My number 2 overall player. I'm going Byron Murphy here. This would be an absolute steal for the Bears. And look, especially if any of the top 3 wide receivers get to this point, I would obviously take that wide receiver. Even though you have DJ Moore and you just paid for Keenan Allen, I just think those players just really move the needle. And then if that weren't the case, I would definitely go offensive line in this spot. But to me, if you get a top 5 player in the draft at pick number 9, we saw this happen at pick number 9 last year with Jalen Carter. I think Byron Murphy is as good as Jalen Carter. I really do think so. And I think this would be an absolute freak of a pick for the Bears. Would love that. And I like that from Evan Silva. Okay? Troy Fatanu at pick Number 10, this is one of the most technically gifted offensive linemen. He is not the same physical presence as Joe Alt. Troy, though, he looks like he even in college, he rocked the jersey midriff when he played for Washington. So I like this pick for the Jets. I don't love it. I would prefer the Jets go in this direction. I know Brian Thomas Jr. has been mocked here. Brock Bowers has been mocked here. I would go offensive line over either one of those two players. So there you go. Pick number 11, the Vikings. Here with J.J. McCarthy. I'll start with this report right here from Evan. I've heard the same thing from Jefferson wanting the Vikings to go get Jayden Daniels. McCarthy at pick 11, I could roll with it. I could live with that. Obviously, he is going to be in a ridiculously good spot as the Vikings have an amazing supporting cast, really good left tackle, obviously skill positions, probably one of the best 1-2 combos at receiver, and a very quarterback-friendly running back in Aaron Jones. And I also think Ty Chandler as a backup is a very good running back. Love this spot for J.J. McCarthy. I think this is the best spot if you're a quarterback to fall to. So Vikings here at J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, I don't have him graded as high as Jayden or Caleb Williams. Get him at pick 11, though, a potential franchise quarterback. You'll take it all day, every day. So there you go. Broncos get Latu. Love this for the Denver Broncos. I think Jamar Cain is a rising defensive line coach, and he gets himself a huge, big-time pass rusher here. And this is actually the player, if I were the Falcons, I would select because I just think he is a better pure pass rusher. I think Dallas Turner overall is the more athletic player. I think both of their RAS scores were actually really good. I just think, though, Latu gives me a little bit more bend around the edge than Dallas Turner, and I'm looking for that from a high-end pass rusher. So, yes, there are medical concerns. Dallas Turner is built like a brick. There's not a whole lot of medical concerns with him. Latu, of course, it's a little bit of a different story. But in the NFL draft, I'm all for going for the upside, and I think Latu, for me, is a top 5 player. Something else is, and it makes me feel better about myself, is Evan Silva. His top players in the draft, he has Byron Murphy going in the top 10, Latu in the top 15. That's how I would do it. I think the NFL listens to me now. Kidding. But we move along here. Raiders go Michael Penix. This would be one of the worst picks in the NFL draft. I know I could get all takes exposed. I think Michael Penix can play. He is older. He has elite athleticism. He didn't really show it, though, as a runner. I think that 40-yard dash time a few weeks ago was very misleading. I get it. I really, really, really do. I know there would be a lot of pressure on the Broncos to go Penix or Bo Nix in that spot. I don't think this is going to happen. But Evan Silver's more plugged in than I am, and I could see this happening. I don't love the pick. I'm not really a Michael Penix guy at the next level. Even though he is older, he is a mature leader. The injury history scares me, though, for first-round draft capital. We get along here. Saints, they get Penn State's Olu Fashanu, who is in pretty much every top 5 mock draft going into this year. He decided to come back for an extra year at Penn State. I know people that know his family, and I'm very happy for Olu going to my dear beloved New Orleans Saints. Saints historically have taken offensive line quite a bit in the first round, and you got to remember this is still the same front office from those days. Obviously, you saw this with Trevor Penning, you saw this with Ruiz, Andres Pete, and the list goes on and on. Okay, so Ryan Ramczyk was also a first round pick, so I think offensive tackle is a really good spot. Brock Bowers is someone who's been hurt by not doing athletic testing. This is a good value pick for the Colts. I think most smart people have Bowers as a top 10 pick. Brock Bowers is the best college football tight end I have ever seen. Have I faded on him just a little bit in the draft process? Sure, because, it's been discovered this offseason that athletic testing matters a whole lot at the tight end position. So, Brock Bowers going pick number 15. Man, it's expensive, but tight end is a huge hole on this Colts team. The thing I don't really love about this is I do think Josh Downs is more of a slot wide receiver. And can Brock Bowers play on the outside? I'm not sure. I think he's more of like a slot hybrid kind of weapon. So I would prefer, if I'm the Colts, to get an outside target that can go deep down the field. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. might be a better fit in this spot. Even though BTJ is someone I don't know I would spend an elite first-round draft pick on. But still, Brock Bowers is a fine pick here. Just not the absolute best fit for me, even though we are huge Anthony Richardson fans on this channel. Our latest Anthony Richardson videos floating in the top right corner of your screen. All right, we go to pick number 16. I think this is a bit of an overpay. I'm not a huge J.C. Latham guy. 5-star offensive tackle. A lot of these Alabama offensive linemen in the first round, it's been a mixed bag. Jedrick Wills has been okay for Cleveland. Leatherwood has not been that great for the Raiders. Not really on fire about this from the Seahawks. To me, Latham is obviously an athletic marvel, as you see, 6'6", 342. I felt at times he could be overpowered. I felt at times he struggled with twists, stunts, games, and the like. Not a huge J.C. Latham guy. I would prefer, and it slips my mind, the offensive lineman out of Oregon State. Could be totally wrong on that, though. We go to the first corner off the board here. Terrion Arnold. I know Quinyon Mitchell has been heavily rumored to be the first corner out of Toledo. I think Terrion Arnold is a very fine prospect. I don't think a lot of people would have expected him to jump Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think that's pretty much consensus. So back-to-back Alabama picks here. Not necessarily on fire about that. All right, we go to the Bengals here. A.D. Mitchell at pick number 18. I don't love this from the Bengals. Now, I will tell you this. Brock Bowers has been mocked to the Bengals quite a bit. I still could see that happening, especially if the Colts decide to go BTJ or A.D. Mitchell at pick number 15. We've seen Adam Schefter say that A.D. Mitchell is going to go higher than people think. A.D. Mitchell does play very similar to T. Higgins. It's just T. Higgins was a far better player in college than A.D. Mitchell, and ironically, they were both big-time playoff performers. But to me, this is one of the worst picks in the first round. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell would go to a really good spot with the Cincinnati Bengals and slide in that number 3 wide receiver spot. I just don't like this pick right here for Cincinnati. I think for me, Tyler Boyd is still there. The Andre I can't say his name. The wide receiver out of Princeton. I think he's got some game. I just think the Bengals have bigger needs in getting another wide receiver in the spot. And this pick feels a little JSN-y, right? You're getting a wide receiver who is immensely talented, but you're drafting him middle of the first round as a number 3 weapon on a team that needs to win now. I just think there's better players out there for them to go get. I would prefer Jerzon Newton out of Illinois in this spot. So I think the Bengals are open to a pass catcher here. I think Brock Bowers would actually be a better pick here if he were to fall here. I also think BTJ could be a player that could go in the spot, but I would not go wide receiver if I'm the Bengals. There's a lot of good players still on this board. Rams go Cooper DeJean over Quinyon Mitchell being here is still amazing to me. I would not take DeJean over Mitchell, who's an athletic marvel, but Cooper also has a really good RAS score. He's got some safety ability as well, and he's going to continue the Jason Sehorn legacy. I do think he'll start off at corner. So Cooper DeJean, pick number 19. Not a bad pick either. All right. Talise Fuaga, the Oregon State player we just mentioned a minute ago. I don't think he's as good as Fashanu. I don't think he's as good as Washington's offensive tackle. I don't think he's as good as, obviously, Joe Alt. But I do like him better than J.C. Latham, and the Steelers getting him in this spot is a pretty good spot in a good offensive line draft. Now, if the Steelers wanted to go more in the guard direction here, I think the Duke offensive lineman, the Oregon offensive lineman, Jackson Powers-Johnson, is also a player that could go here. But I'm fine with this pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? Dolphins to Xavier Worthy. That just makes a lot of sense. He fits the speed culture there with 4.21 speed. And obviously this would be an unbelievable fit. And I think the Dolphins would be jumping for joy in this spot. I didn't include this. I'm actually just recording this the first time I've actually read this. I only read like the first few picks. And I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and just record my NFL mock draft reaction to Evan Silva. Okay? Now, Eagles. Unfreaking believable that they get Quinyon Mitchell in this spot. He's grown on me in the draft process. This just makes too much sense. The Eagles' corners were so old and just torn to pieces versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This would be one of the more celebrated picks in this draft, and part of that is because of the Eagles' reputation with the Howie Roseman. So they desperately need defensive help, and they get it with Mitchell in this spot. Graham Barton is a player we mentioned a minute ago, and I truly do believe this is a great pick for the Minnesota Vikings. They double dip on offense. I think Christian Darrisaw has a chance to be the best left tackle in the NFL. So a very good pick right here for the Vikings at pick number 23. Amarius Mims is another offensive tackle that I love. I like Mims better than Fuaga. I like Mims better than J.C. Latham, of course. I like Mims better than Olu Fashanu, but the injury history is definitely there with Amarius Mims. Just a physical specimen and a really good pick for the Cowboys as they try and get this offensive line to be younger. Packers go Tyler Guyton here. Not as high on Tyler Guyton as some others, but I could see Packers going offensive line. Jared Verse, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pick number 26 out of Florida State. More of your traditional 4-3 defensive end. Think Kevon Thibodeau of the New York Giants. Unbelievable athlete. And, just your typical hand in the dirt. I don't know if he's a standing two-point stance edge bender in the same mold of, let's say, a Von Miller. But I do think Jared Verse is going to be a very good NFL player. Bucs did a really good job last year getting the Pittsburgh defensive tackle, Kalijah Kancey, a little bit later in the draft. And now they get Jared Verse. So really good stuff. Chop Robinson at Penn State. Unfreaking believable athlete. Don't love him, though, as an edge bender. You know, in the Ohio State game, I felt he was pretty much held in check. And once again, Ohio State has NFL-level offensive tackles. Well, what are you going to go up against in the league? Not as high on others as Chop Robinson. I think there's a little bit of a teardrop from the Verse, obviously, Latu and, Alabama, number 15. Who was pick number 8, Dallas Turner. So, Chop Robinson, pick number 27. Don't love it by the Cardinals. They had B.J. Ojolari drafted last year, and I think B.J. was a fine player. Thomas is believed to be dealing with a torn labrum in his shoulder. Okay. So, I believe that happened, per my sources, potentially during the Alabama game. I wasn't able, actually just one source, I wasn't able to get this confirmed. But this is a perfect landing spot for him. Okay, perfect. Josh Allen needs a true deep ball receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. might be the best true deep ball receiver in this draft. You know, maybe outside of Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, but in terms of true verticality, he could be the guy. I like Brian Thomas Jr. better than Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. I don't think it's as sizable of a gap. Personality-wise, so just to give you a little background, BTJ is more of your soft-spoken, quiet type of player. He is a plus blocker when he wants to be. Actually, an unfreaking believable blocker. He is really, really good at making the first guy miss once he catches a football. I will tell you, though, as a yak guy, as a violent runner after the catch, that's not really his game. Is he good after the catch? Yes, but he's not the same as, let's say, like the elite guys when it comes to getting the football, making a guy miss, and gaining an extra 10, 15 yards. That's not really what I feel he is best at. But I will tell you, he's not been playing football all that long. He has a really extensive basketball background back in his high school days. And athletically, according to the RES numbers, he is the most athletic LSU football player of all time when it comes to combine testing. So, BTJ, on my LSU channel, I've gotten some blowback on this. I don't feel he is a top 15 player in this NFL draft. I don't. And I love this landing spot for him at pick number 28. I just don't think he's going to get here. And I feel landing spot is so critical for him. For the top three guys, I think they could be good pretty much anywhere they go. I think landing spot's going to be huge for BTJ because he's never been a pure number one option. That's why I like the Colts for BTJ. But some of these other teams in these middle-ish rounds, let's just say he has to go to the Jets. I know, he's been mocked at pick number 10. I know that they have Garrett Wilson, so he would be the number 2 guy. But that would be a lot, right? Top 10 pick in a completely different market with an aging quarterback. I don't like that for BTJ. I think this would be the absolute perfect landing spot for him. And I would feel a lot better about his NFL future with the Bills than I would if he was at a higher pick. I don't necessarily love him with the Bengals. Even though I would prefer him over A.D. Mitchell, where Evan Silva has him mocked. So I love this fit for BTJ, and this is where I have him on my board in the bottom half of the 20s. So really good landing spot, and I would love this because I am a BTJ fan, but objectively speaking, putting all my LSU bias to the side, I am a little worried. I'm not as on fire about him as some other NFL evaluators. Let's go to the Lions here. Kool-Aid McKinstry, this is a really good pick here at pick number 29. Obviously, the Lions have had their history with drafting corners in the first round. So hopefully this works out for the Detroit Lions. I do love the new uniforms. Jackson Powers Johnson, this is a very, very good pick. As you can see, the Ravens' middle of the offensive line has been gutted. I think interior offensive line is somewhere you could definitely see the Ravens go. I could also see them trading out of that spot. Ladd McConkey, the 49ers wide receiver, being selected here. I do believe in this. I think Brandon Ayuk very well could be on the move, and I think he could be joining one of his best friends, Jayden Daniels, wherever he lands. So Ladd McConkey going to the 49ers. Ladd's been the toughest receiver when it comes to me. I mean, there's times where I'm like, is this guy the 4th best receiver in this draft? And there are some times where I feel like that. I do think he is really, really, really good. And obviously at Georgia, it's tough to get targets. Man, that's expensive, though, for a guy who wasn't overly productive and had some injury concerns this past season. But Ladd McConkey, sure, 49ers can take a risk. And the Chiefs, everyone's picking wide receiver to the Chiefs. I just don't think there's any wide receiver that will get to this spot.